Hello and welcome to Working Lunch, the SLO Chamber's weekly series where we get to sit down with community leaders and hopefully enter the last few hours of our work week feeling a little more informed and connected in these isolating and challenging times. I'm Jim D'Antona, President and CEO of the SLO Chamber of Commerce, and today you'll get a peek into the work of Cuesta College President and SLO Chamber Board member, Dr. Jill Stearns. After her start working in marketing, branding, and development in her family's business in 2 decades in academia, Dr. Stearns was named President Superintendent of Cuesta College in 2018. The post meant a return to SLO, where she earned her bachelor's in business administration from Cal Poly. In between Cal Poly and Cuesta, she has earned both a master's and Ph.D., developed and implemented leading edge curricula in learning technology, distance learning, and professional training, built strong partnerships and alliances with business community leaders alike, and leads with a passion for student equity and student success. I'm so looking forward to talking with her about leading a college during COVID, the transition to online instruction, supporting students and teachers in this challenging time, and learning a little bit more about her background in business. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Stearns.
Thank you, Jim. It's exciting to have this opportunity to speak with you today.
You know, it's one of the things we do right off the bat as we sit down to lunch. First and foremost, where are you zooming in from today, and what do we have for lunch?
So I am actually in my office on the beautiful San Luis Obispo campus of Cuesta College. And for lunch, I'm having a lovely chef salad from Old SLO Barbecue.
Old SLO Barbecue may be winning the contest here of our guests. So they're doing a great job. People love their takeout. So sounds wonderful. So obviously, as we get into COVID, and tell us a little bit about your day in shelter life. This has been an interesting question just to see how people have been doing it differently. Who are you sheltering with? Where are you sheltering? Or in your case, obviously, it seems like you're at the campus. What are new parts of your day in general? How's it going?
So I'm almost embarrassed to admit that my life feels like it hasn't changed too much. I have a pretty limited routine between campus and home, it feels like. But I am sheltering at home with my husband, Keith, and our son, Sam, has been able to come back home. He was working in the music industry in the LA area. And as you are very well aware, there is no entertainment happening right now. So we are glad to have him safe at home with us and our 2 little dachshunds, Opal and Olive.
Wow, very nice. That's fun. And yes, great for him to be back here. Obviously, very difficult times happening in the Los Angeles area right now. So before we dive into all those things, Cuesta, I wanted to take a moment, dig into your past as an entrepreneur. What do you miss most about your time in the private sector?
That is such an interesting question. What I really miss is that close connection to long-term customers, and just that opportunity to have that face-to-face interaction that you experience in the retail world, and the opportunity to build those kinds of relationships. So for me, it looks very different in the world of education. There are lots of similarities, but I think that that's the piece that I miss. And I also miss what it was like to have that responsibility for every aspect of what was happening.
Well, it's so interesting, and that's one of the things I've really, to me, having been in the private sector and the public sector, you know, one of the things you're working with, especially in an education system, is kind of the structures that have to be in place, right, to make decisions, as opposed to the pivot and the ability to maneuver in the private sector. I always try to talk to folks about why there's a need for the structure. Do you see that in the public sector in your current role being necessary? Or do you think we could probably be a little bit more like the private sector in our role?
I think there's yes to both sides of that question. One of the beautiful things around the structure is that it ensures that you have a very participatory process and that you are hearing all voices. And when I think about our faculty in particular in decision making, it's so critical because they're the ones who have that intimate relationship with students in terms of having the regular ongoing contact and understanding where they are. And that's an important piece of our decision making that's just absolutely critical. And so I appreciate that. Where it becomes cumbersome is we don't move very fast. And that can be challenging when we are trying to work with our community partners, with local businesses, because we cannot respond as quickly as we'd like to in some instances because of those structures.
Well, and I think this is interesting to the kind of a follow-up here now. So obviously, as the president and superintendent of Cuesta since 2018, how has your role changed since March and the shutdown, and working along the same ideas of being able to maneuver?
So it has been, I'm incredibly proud of how Cuesta College was able to transition. It is just remarkable when you think about, we had 1,300 class sections, 13,000 students that all of a sudden became online only. And so I'm very, very proud of that. And I'm very proud of the way our campus community pulled together. And that is just incredible. I'm not sure I'm headed where your question was going though. Jim, help me out.
Yeah, so in terms of, no, you're doing great. It's really interesting in your role as president and superintendent and trying to get the faculty, like how did you move the Titanic to get to going in that way?
So it really was that sense of everyone recognizing it wasn't what any of us wanted to do, and it was what we all needed to do and were required to do. And the outcome has been tremendous. There's a different sense of confidence around what we can accomplish, having made our way through that. And so that is really exciting. My role has changed incredibly and continues to change over the course of the progression of the disease. I spend an incredible amount of time in meetings regularly. Those meetings have really shifted to be information gathering. I'm much like you. I spend a lot of time just hearing from our county officials, engaging with our college systems, and just taking in information as it continues to change, and then making sure that information is getting to our COVID-19 planning team, that information is being disseminated as it needs to be, and is guiding our decision making and planning for the campus. So I really feel like my role has become an information broker in a way that is not typical of the regular role of the president of the college.
Yeah, it's definitely, I'm sure, as you look back at 2018, there was nothing in the job description that said deal with a worldwide pandemic. That's
No.
probably off the chart. And so when we talked a little earlier, you mentioned part of your goal is providing as much flexibility as possible for faculty and students. What does that look like at Cuesta, and how are you kind of doing that?
So we, since we have had to go remote, our goal has been to get back to campus. And yet in so doing, in planning our return, we have tried to be very cognizant that everyone's home situation is different, everyone's family situation is different, and that not everyone is going to be ready to return at the same time. We have students and employees who are desperate to be able to come back to campus. And we also have students and employees who need to stay away and not have risk of exposure. And so we are continue to try to map ways to maintain flexibility so that those who do need to remain remote will be able to do so for an even longer extended period of time, while others who are ready to return to campus will have that option. So our faculty have had the option since May to determine whether their class would be face-to-face or would be remote for the fall. And it was just a couple of weeks ago when we saw the rise in cases in San Luis Obispo County, where we had to make the very difficult and disappointing determination that we would primarily be online for fall.
Yeah, it's you definitely heard it, and I'm sure, as with everyone, very disappointing and hard, because as you said at the start, right, you're planning to have everybody come back. We got an interesting question from the Facebook Live group here, and it was, I think, really is interesting for our viewers to hear, is how much autonomy do you have to meet the needs of Cuesta's demographic?
That is something that changes depending upon what's happening in the nation, in the state, and in our county. And so there was more autonomy at the beginning. And then as the shelter orders came into place, that we started to have less autonomy. And as San Luis Obispo County cases rise, we continue to have less autonomy. We do, though, have the opportunity, as businesses do, to self-certify our readiness to reopen when we are meeting the metrics that we need to. And so we continue to plan for that and look forward to that, and continue to hope that we can maintain the flexibility. We have some advantages here. Our local weather is an advantage, in particular because our buildings are designed, our classrooms have exterior doors. Many universities, colleges are built with interior hallways that are causing a challenge for ingress and egress as we think about social distancing. And so that is an advantage that we have, and that we believe is going to help us to open earlier than other colleges may be able to, because we don't have some of those space challenges that other places have. We also have a climate that allows us to keep the doors and windows open. And so we look forward to being able to take advantage of some of those natural benefits that we have here in San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's nice to hear there are at least some leeway in how you deal with it. And as you were talking a little earlier, you said obviously fall semester going to be online. Does that mean the campus will be empty?
So we have, since the shelter order was put into place, we have maintained a site in San Luis Obispo and on our North County campus that remains open for students to be able to use academic technology, to be able to access reserved textbooks, to actually have an opportunity to interact with a live student services representative. And so we have maintained just single spaces that are open and available for that, and we're going to continue that. All of our student support services have transitioned, and they're available online. We're using Facebook Live, we're using Zoom, certainly the phone and text and chat bots, but we just have found that it has been a very important piece of our continued service to students, has been maintaining a place where they can walk in and see someone and have access to technology.
Yeah, it's incredibly important, and especially as we were talking about, right, as starting this conversation, it's isolating. So to have someone helping you, that's a fabulous point. But you're also known for, one of the things that it seems Cuesta and Cal Poly have in common is this learn by doing. Are those kind of classes for a career training going to continue?
So they are, and there are lots of modifications that have been put into place. The few classes that we do have that will have campus components in the fall will primarily be in those areas around the learn by doing methodology. And so when you think about things like welding, to become a skilled welder, you need to practice. And so those types of opportunities will be available. We also anticipate that some of our fine and performing arts also will have some opportunities to be on campus with lots of modifications in place. And our athletic programs have all been moved. All the competition sports will be in spring of 21 if we're able to compete, but our athletes need to be able to condition. And so their conditioning classes, what's typically called their off-season courses, will also be on campus in the fall with lots of modifications and protocols to ensure their safety.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's, again, the challenges you're dealing with, truly impressive, and amazing way that you're finding new ways to kind of make all of that work. Because you have a background in some online education, right? And how does that help prepare you for what's going on right now?
So that's how I entered into community colleges. My title was an Educational Technology Specialist. I was a classified professional, and my job was to train faculty to develop and deliver online instruction. And then, and I loved that. I love that role very, very much. And I have an incredible appreciation for what it requires to be able to teach effectively, fully online. And so that's where I talked about how proud I am of our faculty who transitioned so quickly in the spring. It's because I fully understand what that required. And it's a tremendous shift. And one of the things that is coming out of this is a renewed recognition of just how important it is to, even though we can do online, how critical it is for many, many students to have the opportunity to have that classroom experience. And it really reaffirms that the importance of the relationship between the faculty and the students, and that opportunity to interact in the same space. And so I hope it puts to rest some of the prophecy around all education is going to be online. I think there really is a renewed appreciation for that classroom experience that's going to come out of this. But at the same time, there are also faculty and students who had never experienced online, who have found that it is a new place where they can be successful. And that's exciting as well.
Yeah, it's definitely, as someone who never got a chance to do it in my career, I'm always amazed by it. And I know parents are certainly enjoying the face-to-face classes more than they've ever. They're hoping those will come back at some point soon for those with elementary school kids. But one of the things I like to transition to here is the signature elements of Cuesta College is the Cuesta Promise. I don't think a lot of folks understand how this works. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it is and how it works, and how kind of you make it happen?
So it is certainly reasonable that people don't understand, because it is quite complex. And it's only possible to do what we do because of the Cuesta College Foundation and the great support that we have from this community that makes it possible. But we actually braid together a variety of funding opportunities. And it starts with statewide resources and dollars that are available to students in financial aid. And then it is really backed up by our foundation. And that's what allows us to have local students that complete their high school diploma or a GED. So you don't have to be 18 and right out of a high school, but adults who complete a GED are also eligible to come to Cuesta on the Promise. And that means that they get 2 years of their registration fees covered. And it really is tremendous. And we are excited about it. We have had the last couple of years more than 1,000 students each year take advantage of the Promise. And we hear regularly from families what a difference it makes for them. We all recognize the challenge that the high cost of living in San Luis Obispo County brings. And it's often that family in the middle that really struggles. Their students might not be eligible for other types of aid. And so the Promise makes a big difference for our local families.
It's really an incredible opportunity and asset for our community, and we're so appreciative it's here. But I've got to assume that now you're also facing some COVID-related budget cuts. Where do things stand today related to the Cuesta Promise?
So the Cuesta Promise stands firm, and even though our budget is reduced, we don't have a reduction in student financial aid, and the support of our foundation, it remains very, very strong. And so there's no fear there. We are making other types of changes, though. Our tentative approved budget is 1.4% less than last year, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you consider that we are an institution that is 85% salary and benefit, we don't have a lot of wiggle room. And so we have, since February, actually been making moves to ensure that we could balance our budget for this next year.
Yeah, it's well, that's awesome to hear, and again, hats off to you for adapting through this because obviously, as you said, with the amount of students taking part of that, so important. I'd like to kind of jump real quick into kind of your background. You started teaching in math. It's one of my favorite subjects. What drew you to that position and that subject?
So at that point in time, I had been managing my family's business that was primarily gift and floral at that point in time for about 10 years. And I had done some substitute teaching. I'd been raised by educators that also were small business owners. And the high school principal came in literally on a Friday, was desperate. He said, "Jill, would you take a 1-year contract? I just had someone walk out." And at the time, my husband and I had just broken ground and were building a gas station. That was our first big business venture. And it seemed like the timing was going to be about right. I could go into the classroom for a year while that was under construction. And so I said yes. And there was something about stepping into that classroom, not substitute teaching, but it being mine. And I had spent all of my life determined that I was not going to go into education, and realized it was really where I needed to be.
Yeah, it looks like you missed that that piece missed by something that you now are the leader of. It is awesome. You obviously went to Cal Poly. You moved away for a number of years, and now that you've been back for a few years, what have you loved most about being back in SLO?
So my husband is a Cal Poly alum, and both of our sons, and so this has always felt like home to us. It has been where we have had our sights on being able to retire. And Keith had an opportunity to move to San Luis about 3 years before I did. And so I'm the trailing spouse in this situation. So sometimes it works. I'm the evidence. But we really feel like we are living our dream of being able to return to San Luis Obispo. We never really thought it would be possible until we were ready to retire. And we live near the Irish Hills, and just love that every evening we can walk our dogs out through the meadow and just really enjoy the some of the natural benefits that come with being in San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, it's, I hear you 100%. I had all those same thoughts. And so here's something I like to, this is a fun one, and it's, I guess if I'd asked this question 3 weeks ago, you probably wouldn't have gotten the answer. What are 3 things you think are, or even one thing you think our region will be experiencing a week from today, a month from today, as we kind of work through this? Love to hear your thoughts on kind of where you see coming on your crystal ball. Anything?
I think we're going to see shelter fatigue. Especially, I have been really concerned as we've been reopening around non-compliance if we have to roll back. And I'm one of those people who missed the opportunity to get my hair cut, and I really regret that at this point in time. But I think that it's wearing on people. And we know it's wearing on our students. We know it's wearing on our employees. and just our community in general. And so that's really what I am concerned about, is both the short term, so in this next middle phase of what it looks like in the pandemic, and what the long-term effects are going to be.
Yeah, I think that's a great analysis, and I'm sure definitely something I think we're all feeling. So is there something that you've done recently or in the recent past here that you never imagined doing before?
Never imagined having all instruction at the institution be online, having our employees be remote, certainly those things. And I never imagined cooking so much.
That's a great one. Yeah, really, that's one of the most amazing parts. In fact, from everything we've seen with my colleagues at the chamber, there's been a lot of bread that's been baked.
I really want to go out to dinner. That's where I'm at.
I hear you. I'm right there with you. So just a few questions ago, you talked about your, not wanting to be in education because that's where that was the family role. What was your upbringing like? Where were you from?
I am from Avenal, so just 80 miles inward from here toward the center of the state, right along Interstate 5. And Keith and I raised our sons there. It was fantastic. I grew up with my 2 sets of great-grandparents and my 2 sets of grandparents, and it was just fabulous. And so we really wanted that opportunity for our boys to grow up where their cousins were and extended family.
Ah, that's awesome. And both your parents were educators?
They were. Between them, 82 years in K-12. Right.
Wow, bless their heart. That is, that's a sacrifice. That is amazing. Oh, that's so great. Well, I can't believe we're already like 30 minutes in, but so one of the last questions we always give, and hopefully interested to get what your thinking is on this, and what are you looking forward to this weekend?
So this weekend, we're going to go pick up our trailer, and I'm taking next week off, and I'm going to be doing some service, and I look forward to that. So
that's awesome. It does seem the #1 vacation at this point, or outside, is the trailer, the RV. Folks are starting to get, it's the only way to travel now, I think. Right.
Right.
Well, Dr. Stern, thank you so much for eating lunch with us today. And for everyone else out there, we hope to see you on July 24th, same time, same place, when we sit down with Kevin Buman to talk about all things at the airport. If you have an idea for a future working lunch guest, send us an email at slochamber@slochamber.org. Again, Dr. Stern, thank you so much for being with us and doing the great work you're doing out at Cuesta.
Thank you so much, Jim. Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great day, everybody.